Hello friends, thank you for joining me tonight. My name's Dan and I am just almost finished with this side of the house mural that I've been working on for the past week and a half. 6 by 10 foot painting. Real honestly anxious to get it done. Sorry, just very tail end of a little cough. And I've failed to do a clapper, so this is Daily Art Adventure number 610. I called it late process late process glazes. I'm calling it that to draw a distinction between this and the glazing that I typically do a lot of early in the process. And an overall introductory comment here. When I watch or look at other people's paintings, especially like in a critique setting, and they say, "Oh, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with this painting," right? That typical. We all feel that way at times. I will tell you that about, I would think 75 or 80% of the time, when I see someone else's painting, especially if it's in that stage of, well, I'm not really sure what to do with it stage, 75 to 80% of the time, I would guess. I don't always say, it's not my place to always say something, but I almost always would say, okay, I know what would help it. You don't have sufficient darks. Now, I apply this rule to myself as well. I'm interrupting myself now, but let me back up and give you a general principle, which I've stated on this channel more than once. If you're late in a painting and something's not quite right and you're not sure what it is, 80% of the time, it's a values problem. And 80% of those times, it's a dark values problem. That is to say, inadequate, insufficient dark values. Okay, did you just follow that? If you're working on a painting, the drawing is okay. It's not some glaring drawing issue or something like that, but it's not cooking, just not sizzling. And of course, we've all been there. And it could be any number of things, but what I'm saying is 80% of the time, in my humble observation opinion, 80% of the time it's a values problem, something wrong with the lights and darks. And 80% of those times, it's oh man, there's no way I'm getting that open. Woo! Okay, that's gonna, I have 2 bottles of GAC 200 is what I'm using here. 80% of the time it's a values problem, and 80% of those times it's a dark or lack of, what I mean by dark values problem is lack of dark values. All right, so that's the way I feel about other people's paintings very often, including my own at times. But tonight, I'm not in a place of wondering what's quote unquote wrong with my painting. No, I'm just in a place of, all right, let's finish this thing up. No, what is unusual about this particular painting, as opposed to most of my paintings, this is acrylics, right? So the nice thing about acrylics, and it's acrylics because it's an outdoor painting painted on hardy board, and facing straight west. So it's going to get full sun every sunny day of its life. So I've told my clients, I think that this painting will last 20 to 25 years. And they have said that's okay. They said they don't plan to be alive. And I said, oh, surely not. They could certainly be here 25 years from now. But anyway, and I say that because that's what the golden acrylic people. I can't remember where I read that. They have a lot of information on the website, but I don't remember if I actually read that on their website or not. But somewhere I read that, and that sounds very reasonable to me. So I'm using the best kind of paints you can use for outdoor mural, next to the stone paints. I keep forgetting. I keep talking about them this week and then forgetting to look up the name of it. Suspended. I'm not. This is not the name. This is the description. It's actually literal mineral suspended. So you're painting literally with stone, if you will. You're painting with ground up bricks, if I may, suspended in a very special formula. That will last 500 years. The downside of those colors is, number one, they don't have very intense colors. Their red is very subdued. Anyway, next to that, next to that kind of paint that I'm describing and forget the name of, golden acrylics are, I believe, the next best thing for outdoor murals. And I am going to put an extra layer of GAC 200 tomorrow over the whole, tomorrow or the next day, probably tomorrow, over the whole thing, and then give it a couple coats of varnish after that. Typical picture varnish, ultraviolet, protectant varnish, and so on. Okay, but back to the job at hand. What am I doing right now? The painting is, I think, essentially done. I did just a couple, 1, 2, 3, 4 little tiny drawing touch-ups a few minutes ago before I started the broadcast. Just little things. And again, with those, I think my drawing is done. That is to say, the painting is done. But now I have this delightful, luxurious opportunity of just glazing. Now, I hope that you can see what I'm doing. I am quite concerned that much of what I'm doing in this operation here tonight is so subtle that you may not be able to see it. Hi, Marlene. Was that an earlier comment? I think it was. David, the front corner window on the side window still looks like one. Oh, you're right. I know it does, David. Dang. And that's what Marlene is responding. Everybody needs a David Mercer in their life. I agree. So here's the photograph. I know you can't see it. The perspective, here's the horizon line, right? And so the perspective lines here are very slight. There is a slight one there. Okay, David, I think that's a good point. So I need to lighten this and darken this. Now this is glass. And in the photograph, here, can you see that? Barely. You're actually getting more backlight than anything, aren't you? There you go. See? Now I don't need to do, of course, I'm actually not doing what the photograph does. In the photograph, this pane has a bright reflection. Now I need to rethink that, but David, I think you're right. It is a little confusing right here. The light's coming from this side, so this is in the light, and I've got it up here. Maybe I should separate that, make this lighter. And I wonder if I should make this glass lighter as well. I probably should. See, this is lighter than that because of reflection. All right, good enough. I don't mean good enough yet. It's good enough. Good enough. Thanks for the yell, David. Uncle 57, yeah, 2 bottles of wine. Golden open, slow dry. No, Barbara, I never use a slow dry. And David, okay, David, I see you there. Your comment there. You did say darken that. Man, but I like I like this color so much. I might just lighten this one. I don't know, but I will seriously consider. I love Marlene's response to you there, David. That's hilarious. I love it when you guys talk to each other or talk about each other, one or the other. What a fun community. I'm not making any money on you, but boy, we sure are having fun, aren't we? But Marlene is exactly correct. I mean, that's why I'm so big on painters groups getting together. My local monthly painters group that I started about 12 years ago, we got together last night, about a dozen of us, I think. And I was telling my wife again, I said, this is just sweet. I mean, we become, you know, I don't think, most of us don't fraternize, fellowship, get together outside of painters group, but we've been doing this for, and some only for 4 or 5 years, and you know, the newcomers. Anyway, I am, if this group ended next month, this month, I said, if my group ended this month, I would start another group next month. That is exactly the truth. That's how much value I put on these fellow fellow artists and getting their feedback, just like David did with me there. You know, it makes you look at things, you know, with fresh eyes, a fresh glance, because David was looking, because I thought about that, and I thought I was, you know, home free. I thought, yeah, I think that's good enough, but David's giving me some good feedback, like, no, it's not working. So there you go. Now, I will say too, and I when people are coming to like a painters group for the first time, and we do have new people coming, of course, all through, periodically all through, I usually introduce it. I say, okay, here's the way it goes. A whole bunch of people will, when you put your painting up there, one person will say one thing, another person will say something else, and a considerable percentage of it, of what that gets said to you, you just need to let it go in one ear and out the other. You nod, you smile. I mean, I do this. I see others doing it. Sometimes at what I say, you know, they smile and nod, go, maybe. But then invariably, somebody in the group, somebody in the painters forum, will say something, and when they do, it's like all the alarm bells or all the something bells go off. And you go ding, 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 ding. That's it, that's it, that's it. And man, what a great feeling to walk out of a painter's critique group with an understanding of how to improve your painting. Man, that is the greatest thing in the world. Well, I'm sure it's not the greatest thing in the world, but give me a few minutes, I'll think of something better. But you know what I mean. It's a great feeling to get that when somebody says something that registers. And once again, just going back to the issue at hand, I'm thinking that what David said a minute ago is, yeah, probably worth heeding. Okay, just a couple words of explanation then. You know what, Dave, now I'm looking at this now again, of course, with fresh, I think I can darken that without, even though I do like the color of it, I can darken that without losing my soul. I'm now mixing up some warm yellow brown transparent red oxide and transparent yellow oxide to go on these trees. I like the trees. They are a little bit greenish. And all of you art students are going, aren't trees supposed to be green? Yes, 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 but we have this saying around here, green is a very dangerous color. Little green goes a long way. Green behaves differently inside your eyeball. Green behaves differently inside your eyeball than all the other colors because of the way our rods and cones see light and color. Green is very aggressive color. It comes toward you. I've heard that we can see more shades of green than any other color. And of course, then the evolutionary psychologists, maybe rightly, maybe not, say it's because blah, 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 we had to discern. Maybe, maybe, maybe not. Be that as it may. We sure can see a lot of greens. But be that as it may, that's not my concern, whether that's scientifically true. What is true, I do know, is that green is like an aggressive, come at you color. So anyway, I'm just calming it down a little bit by putting some kind of rust, very, very faint rust orange would be maybe the best description of the color. Now, in the few minutes we've been going, I've done, again, rust orange is a good, or oxide red down here with a little bit of transparent oxide yellow. Did a bunch of oxide yellow all over this sign and over much of the mid area here. Again, oxide, transparent oxide yellow. Okay, I'm going to rinse out these brushes real quickly. Forgive me for a minute. And then I'm going to pick up some smaller brushes and have a little bit of fun doing surgical glazes. Now, when I use the word glazes, and I sometimes remember to say this, we are not usually normally talking about details. We're normally talking about areas, like I've been doing. What you've seen me doing is typical. But you can do a little bit of more precise stuff. And so this area right here, the focal point, the center of the painting, I feel like could use some, what I'm calling surgical color. Now, there we go. I have not one, but two butcher trays here with me this evening for this very purpose, so that I can get, you know, I don't want my glazes mixing with each other. Try to keep those wet for a while. Now, let me give another overall principle kind of statement. Again, it's one that I state fairly often. This is not a Dan Nelsonism. My application of it might be unique to me, but the principle itself this is not unique to me. Here it is. Darks first, lights last. You've maybe heard that. What I have discovered is that that's a principle that essentially applies to the entire process of painting from beginning to end. So let me put in other words, a different application of that principle: darks first, lights last. And that's, again, that's a universal art professor-ism, and the art professors are correct when they say that, in my opinion. But here's one application of that. Anytime you put dark on your canvas, on your painting, then your painting is not finished. because anytime you put dark on your canvas, you have to follow up with light. Darks first, lights last. So if you follow this principle assiduously, if you follow it fairly carefully, if you followed it extremely carefully, that's what I mean to say, you would finish every painting eventually. You'd work your way lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter till the very last strokes you put on the painting would either be pure titanium white or warm titanium, you know, titanium warmed up, one or the other, whichever is lighter in the context. And yet, that is true. Now, most of the time, we don't have to follow that principle quite that assiduously, carefully. We don't have to follow it, carry it to the extreme. But it does help to illustrate the point. Like some smart person would say, well, if that's true, if it's darks first, lights last, then eventually, wouldn't the very last thing you put on your canvas always be pure white? And that's right, you're thinking correctly. By the way, no, I am not going to leave that that blue there. I just picked up a larger brush again. Although I did want to blue this whole wall. Okay, so back to the principle I was trying to state in the first place, which is, after doing any kind of glazes, because glazes by definition are dark, right? You don't glaze with white. If you're doing thin layers of white, that's not glazing. That's could be scum. The comparable is scumbling. And scumbling is completely legal. So here I am, David. I'm going to start by darkening this front window with a transparent blue. By the way, I'm going to zoom in here for a minute, and I learned a little trick the other day, because my most common mistake that I make is when I zoom in, I forget to zoom back out. Oh, and you're getting a terrible glare there. Hang on, I'm going to move you around. To fix that, there we go. To remedy that, I'm going to physically, when I can, I'm going to physically move the camera, and then I won't forget to back it out because it's frankly quite in my way, the way it is right now. All right, but I wanted David to see. Okay, I keep interrupting myself. Let me finish my thought. So, so after glazing, which is dark, if you're glazing with light, that's called scumbling. But after glazing, and it's not called glazing, after glazing with dark, then you have to follow through. Again, the rule is, and every rule can be broken, but you follow through with light. So I'm not truly finished with this painting after doing all these glazes, right? Because I'm darkening. Every glaze that I put on the painting is, in fact, darkening the painting. And you could ask me the question, well, why is that? Why is it that, you know, darks first, lights last? Why do we have to, and again, every rule can be broken, if there's a mitigating or contravening rule that overrules it, there we go, that's the right word, overrules it, since we're talking about rules. Why is that? Well, one of the answers to that why is because, so this is just a deeper, broader, general principle, the human eye likes to see light paint on top of dark paint. We do not get pleasure out of, or as much pleasure out of, I should say, we do not get pleasure out of seeing dark paint on top of light. This does not apply to watercolor. And of course, you can challenge the statement I just made, and I wouldn't blame you for challenging it. But I would blame you for challenging it if you're just challenging for the sake of challenging. I've been an artist for a long time. Doesn't mean I'm right about everything, of course. But I think I'm right about that one. Anyway, I was going to say one of the crazy parts of, I'm going to move you here a little bit, of acrylics, here's where oils are so superior to acrylics. When you're doing glazes like this, I do not know what color these glazes are going to be until a few minutes later when they have dried. Because especially glazes, acrylics shift as they dry. Let me prove that, point out why. Again, by showing you, oh, you can't see it very well, but do you see the GAC in there, the GAC 200, the medium? It's white like Elmer's glue, white like milk, right? That means when I apply this glaze, any of these glazes, it's got a whiteness in it because the medium is wet. Then when the medium dries, it's clear. Again, like Elmer's glue. Some of you don't know that Elmer's glue looks white when it's wet and then dries clear. It does. And acrylic medium does the same thing. So that is a distinct disadvantage that acrylics possess compared to oils. When you're glazing with oils, pretty much all the time, I believe, the color you put down when it's wet is the same color you get after it dries. Okay, so there we go. I just wanted to kind of complain at you a little bit. Explain the part of the challenge of glazing. I mean, I like it. I'm having a great time. But the challenge is you can't tell exactly what color it is when you first put it down. All right, and I realized just for a minute there I was painting outside your view. So let me do this. Let me back you back up, because I don't know where I'm going from there. Hang on. I still have a little bit of blue here on these brushes. Yeah, a little bit of shade. I describe this glazing process. It shares a characteristic with wiping out with a rag, and it is in this respect. Both of those techniques are similar in this regard, and that is they allow you to have extreme control, control-freak control, without the downside, the typical downside. What's the downside of being a control freak? Where you have all these, the answer is you have all these tight, awkward, uncomfortable marks, right? But glazing allows you to have extraordinary control of values and colors without that downside. You don't, because you're not using tiny brushes. Does that make sense? I'm going to go back to my yellow gold for just a minute. I'm calling it yellow gold. It's actually transparent yellow oxide. Lovely color. I don't know if you heard me explain earlier, last week or this week, that the family that I'm doing this for. This is obviously a famous landmark in old downtown Raleigh. And the family I'm doing this for is a longtime Raleigh resident, and this is their family. That's the car. That's a Triumph, 1973 Triumph TRG. So I've been told. And so that they are. And it is bright yellow. So they're the star of the show, star of the painting, if you will. Ah, I see. I just saw another area where, sorry about all the noise here, sorry. I just discovered an area that I can improve on, and that is that down here, this is pavement, asphalt. And it really should be bluer than the sidewalk. But it has sunshine on it, so I don't want it too dark. Did you see how easy it was to make that darker and prettier? Any time that you do, that you shift across the temperature equator. You shift from warm to cool or cool to warm. Using glazes, you get a very pleasant effect. Let me say that again. Anytime, like if right here and right here, the color of the color of that part of the painting was cool. I'm sorry, it was warm a minute ago, and I just did a cool glaze on top of warm color. And what I'm saying to you is, anytime you do that, you get a very pleasing effect. So going across the color equator, I'm calling it from warm to cool or cool to warm, either one creates a really nice effect. And part of the explanation, if you will, I'm not sure that's the right word, but part of it is our brain doesn't really know what color to call the new color. And again, this is another example of counterintuitively our brain enjoys the mild confusion of not knowing what to call a given color. When we look at a part of the painting, our brain gets a kick out of going. Did you catch that? I know you couldn't see me. You can figure out what I was doing. Our brain enjoys that little bit of confusion. Contrary to what, again, most people would say, no, I don't like being confused. Oh. Same thing, we enjoy being manipulated. And most non-artists would say, not me, I don't enjoy being manipulated. But that's because they're not talking about art. They don't know about art. In art, the more skillful the artist is, the more perfectly the artist manipulates the viewer, much to the viewer's delight. That is a big part of the experience of aesthetic pleasure when looking at paintings, is mild confusion. How about that? Isn't it funny? I think it's funny. I've been preaching it for years, and I still think it's funny. By the way, I did the same jumping the equator here. This was a cool, no, forgive me, this was a warm color, and I did cool on top of it. And we look at it, and I mean, technically, I guess it's brownish gray. I mean, what an awful color, brownish gray. And yet, our eye, our brain, discerns, sees layers and layers and layers of color, and sort of, I think, sees the fight, if you will, the competition between, or the tension. That's what I'm looking for. Sees the tension between warm and cool, and enjoys that tension. There you go. That's a good way to put it, because we can understand now. We might not enjoy being confused, but we enjoy tension. That's what sporting events are, right? That's what a good symphony is. Even a good rock song, a piece of music, a song, whatever. It's the tension, and we do enjoy that. So there you go. That's a fair comparison, I think, and not hard for people to understand. And you say, no, we enjoy tension. We enjoy confusion. I'm going to clean these large brushes again. Bear with me just a minute. Let me see what comments you guys have left. I see a lot of stuff going on. Going all the way up to, does Mrs. Dan paint? No, Uncle 57. No, she does not. She is quick to say she does not. I gave her one art lesson when she laughed. She would tell you this story. When she was, before we got married, I was 23, she was 26. I was doing a poster. She had one job. It was to color one piece of pepperoni on the poster. I gave her the right marker. I told her which pepperoni to color. Here's a poster. And we've laughed about that to this day. You could spot her pepperoni from across the room. It didn't look right. So she says, happily, she supports her local artist. And she does indeed. and boy, do I appreciate it. And David, how about that street post to the right? Seems too skinny. Let me read that again, David. But that street post to the right seems too skinny. You talking about this one? Whoops, sorry, I just kicked you all over the place, guys. Sorry about that. It does look skinnier on my monitor than it does in real life. Let me move you over a minute. I think it looks all right, I think. Does that look any better? Although I do want to do something to it, now that you mention it. Not what you said, but I want to put some light on it. And again, telephone poles like that are most typically, but I'm not into doing light yet. Right now I'm doing the dark glazes, but I do want to do some pale green, dull green on, and maybe some brown on this side of it. I don't know if that'll help any or not, but I'll take a look at that as well. Okay, I'm looking around to see if I'm finished with the glazes. Well, I have two very particular, let me look at some more comments. Yeah, Uncle 57, I think right. If the Ute runs out for donuts later. Ah, that's good, Uncle 57. Thanks, Foxhole Willie. Appreciate it. Yeah, William Alexander. I like that guy. No, I am trying to indicate wet streets mildly. I'm trying not to go. I'm trying not to go 19th century French Paris painting wet, but little bits of reflection here and there. Yeah. Let me see. Artist Ross. Yeah, there's gonna be a run on donuts. Wouldn't that be fun? Hello, Annette. Good to have you on board. I noticed the yellow car stands out. Yeah, yeah, and that's intentional. I really had fun. So this is a Pontiac Bonneville, I think. This is a Shelby Mustang. This is a Ford Galaxy. This is an old pickup, and that's a Volkswagen. All the other cars are just old-looking cars. I discovered, much to my chagrin, all right, I'm going to tackle this, David. This needs some fixing. I discovered that I really am better at painting old cars than new. Boy, all of a sudden I had a moment of, oh my goodness, I am getting old. I can paint 1970 cars from memory, but to paint 2000 teens cars, I need to look at reference. Okay, so David, I'm going to darken this. I'm saying David because David Mercer a while ago said, and I am going to lighten. I'm not doing any lightening yet, so hang on. That's going to have to wait. Oh, and I want that to stay light. That's right. Sorry. I'm using one of the colors I got, one of the colors that was on the golden good boy list, or good girl list, if you will. Colors that will do well in sun. Chromium oxide green was one, and that not a surprise to me. Not a surprise to me. I learned that, as I said, when I was doing a William Bouguereau knockoff about 20 years ago. I took a class from one of Frank Cavino's students. What's the word I'm looking for? Not student, but one of Frank Cavino's proteges. That's the word I'm looking for. I took a class 20 years ago and enjoyed it immensely. Learned a lot. Obviously I don't paint like William Bouguereau, but I was definitely influenced by William Bouguereau. So there are elements of his stuff that still appears. when I'm teaching, and I say this not infrequently, I think probably on my channel, if you want one word to characterize and describe Dan Nelson's painting technique, if you're only allowed one word, what would it be? And the answer is transparent. So I'm living up to my one word characteristic right now. And yeah, the William Bouguereau expedition, journey, adventure was definitely part of that process. So was Maxfield Parrish. I was a big follower, if you will. He was long since dead, of course, but I was a big follower of Maxfield Parrish for many years in my illustration career. If you go to my website, dannelsonart.com, and go to my illustration page, and then go to the pen and ink, the colored pen and ink stuff that you see on that page. He didn't work in pen and ink, but I took the Maxfield Parrish approach to painting and applied it to pen and ink. So that's just for what it's worth, which is maybe nothing. But golly, I sure had fun telling you. I need to put some color on this dog, some lightness, because it's a purely blue dog, which is a little bit weird. I'll do that later. Okay, there are a couple very specific glazes that I need to do. And I'll need a ladder for one of them. One is the traffic lights up there. I know the light is terrible. Let me see if I can get a little better light up there, both for me and for you. There we go. That, and there we go. All right. So I'm going to do, I want to put in as intense of a green as I can create on, and I'm sorry, I know the lighting is terrible. That's the best I can do, sorry. Instead of having red lights, which is more common, more typical for me, I want I have green lights, go lights instead of stop lights. For some reason, I just felt I was in the mood to do green instead of red. More often than not, I do red lights. I enjoy painting red lights. Now, it turns out good, because if I had done red lights, this one up here, way at the top of the painting, would have been very bright, right at the edge of the painting. That would not have been good. I didn't even think about that. That's just lucky that I decided that would have been a problem. Now with these, I think, with these same brushes, without cleaning them, just dipping them in some titanium white. And if my thinking is correct, I should be able to come up here and paint the middle of that with some white that picks up the green. And if it doesn't work exactly the way I want, then that just simply means I'll come back and do that after this dries and do the green glaze again. Let me leave that for now, right the way it is. Clean these brushes. Let's do a similar operation to the red hot now light. Now some of you, and maybe some tail lights, we'll see. Time to do some red lights, okay? The one red that was on the list from Golden, I should say the red I was most interested in, Pyrrole, P-Y-R-R-O-L-E. I know I've seen that before. I'm not sure I've ever used Pyrrole before. It's medium opaque. That means, or medium transparent, either one. Light fastness 1, of course. And it's a slightly cool red, very similar to Naphthol Crimson. All right, and I believe I want to mix this with some yellow. And what was the yellow, just for what it's worth? Bismuth Vanadate Yellow. I'm positive I've never used Bismuth Vanadate Yellow. What a great name. Bismuth Vanadate. It may be Vanadate, I don't know. Is it Italian? You don't like those words that you don't know what language they are, so you don't know how what rules you're supposed to put in your head. Okay, so I've got definitely an orange going here. I'm going to glaze right on top of this. So this is a very famous sign at the Krispy Kreme. It's a neon sign that says "Hot Now," which means they turn it on when the machines are running and making donut. They say they have caused accidents with people turning around to get their Hot Now donuts. And these donuts are pretty disgustingly tasty no matter when they were made. But I guess there's some people just can't resist the Hot Now. So as you can see, I'm doing the aura. Now I have to decide. I guess I'm going to make these lit up. I've been sort of hovering between two opinions on some of these cars. And honestly, on some of this stuff, I really miss my oil, my normal, the way my oils behave. I'm enjoying this adventure, I promise. I am very much enjoying this acrylics only adventure. I've done it, of course, several times in my career, but it has been a while since I did a acrylic only painting. And I do find myself just a little bit of disequilibrium, a little bit of off balance feeling operating with acrylics only, not going to oils. But all right, that's right. It's the kind of disequilibrium. It's a kind of imbalance that's good for me. I'm sure. I'm not complaining. Okay, now I'm going to not clean these brushes, but wipe them off, and then pick up some pure titanium white. Nope. I'm going to add some yellow to that titanium white, so it's definitely warm. Okay, then in theory, here, I'll bring you guys in close again so you can watch this operation. So I've just switched over to doing now some of the white follow-up. No, I don't mean white, I'm sorry, light follow-up. I've just switched over, right? As I was saying a little while ago, anytime that you put dark on your painting, you're supposed to follow up with light. Now, debated with the idea of trying to spell out the letters hot now. I may change my mind, but at the moment I decided not to. I think my photograph. I don't think the lights are on. No, they're not. Too bad. So I don't know. I probably could Google Krispy Kreme hot now and just find. Okay, that's too dry already over here, so I was too late getting back to. Whoops, I'm over here at the moment. This only works if it's still wet. What I'm trying to do is mix wet in wet, and I got there too late. Now let's go over to the cars. I'm sure I'm too late for that too. So, so I can't do it in one step as I was hoping to. So what I'm doing then is mixing up a pale opaque orange, sort of a peach colored, right? Pale orange. Can you pick? Would you call that a peach? I think I might just let it go at that and not get quite as dramatic as I often do. I look at some of my other paintings. I often have fun getting very dramatic with the taillights. I might let them go just a little bit subtle this time. But here at the last minute, I decided, didn't I? I decided to turn on the taillights of the star car here. I saw some interesting comments going by. I didn't have time to read it. Something about me painting late at night. I look forward to reading that one. This is one of those nights, if I were not at somebody else's house painting. Understand, I'm upstairs on their third floor patio, and they're downstairs, no doubt, waiting to go to bed. They've got this crazy guy up on the roof painting. If it weren't for them, I'd paint till 11 o'clock. Okay. Now, you've heard me say a couple times, once you do dark, then you have to do light. A very good logical question would be, well, how much light and where? And the answer is, oh, now that's, I don't know. That's not easy to answer. The answer is just a little bit here and there. You know, not a lot. I just looked at my watch a minute ago and realized I have about 20 minutes left to paint. I think my green lights are okay up there. I'll be back tomorrow morning to oh, let me tackle this. That's a good place to maybe wrap up. That's the place where my friend David, my fellow Canuck, David, I had a, I got to tell you, I had, when I was in high school in Cleveland, Ohio, I had a very sweet girlfriend who was Polish, by the way, and we had this cute little, you know, the way little young lovers do, we had this cute thing where she called me, instead of a Canuck, she called me a Canute, just in humor. But the funny part is, here 45, 47 years later, I always have to think twice before I go, okay, wait a minute, is it a Canuck or a Canute? And sometimes I get it wrong. No, it's a Canuck. But anyway, if I accidentally call you a Canute, it's with great affection. I'm sure that blesses you greatly. while we're exaggerating the differential between those two planes, then I will also go ahead and do lighten the glass. So yeah, well that really does it right there, doesn't it? At least I think it does. It really makes this clear. That's a good call, because they were too similar before. And of course, I'm trying to indicate on many of those panels that there's shadows of trees falling. Let me take just a minute and point out again something that for me that has become a nearly universal principle. I paint a lot of buildings, so I have the opportunity to employ this trick very often. There are many flat planes in this scene. And virtually every single flat plane has a shadow cast across it. Let me start real simple. I don't know if you can see this. No, you can barely see it. Here's a flat plane, a yellow sign. It's lighter here, fades to dark. More yellow, more orange. This in particular, light to dark, light to dark, light to dark. This plane back here, light and dark, and it has a shadow across it. Shadow there. This roof, of course, light and dark, but even in the shadow it gets darker as it goes. This plane right here, really big one, has shadow here, light to dark. Virtually every plane, flat plane in the building, this blue roof, light to dark. This one, it could use, this one's good, light to dark. This one doesn't have quite as much, a little bit light to dark and light to dark. So even this little square right here, light here, dark here. Good principle, good thing to keep in mind. And I have really run out of time, which is too bad, because I sure am having fun. I really am. I've caught that that artist late night wind. You know what I'm talking about? I'm really in the groove, and unfortunately I have to quit. So I will be back, of course, tomorrow to I hope finish up and then clean up. Clean up is not a small operation here. I have paint drips on the walls. By the way, where are you? By the way, the antidote, the cleanup for acrylics, if you don't know this, is denatured alcohol. So I've got a big can of denatured alcohol here. I'll be using that to clean up tomorrow. I have some Goo Gone where my tape is stuck to their wall. And then, don't tell them this, but there's little areas where my tape pulled the paint off their wall. Can you believe that? Darn. So tomorrow in the daylight, I'm going to carefully mix up. I'm going to clean the walls, everything as much as I can, and then whatever, and then paint. Fortunately, I'm a trained professional. I should be able to match that color exactly. It'll take me several minutes, but I'll match it. The hard part will be matching the shininess. So just a little insight. It's a satin or semi-gloss. I don't know which. I'm going to bring a little bag of marble powder with me for less gloss, more marble powder. More glossy, less marble powder. Just for what it's worth. I'm going to do just a couple more strokes. Back in the day when I was a full-time illustrator, that was especially the mid-'80s through the mid-'90s was my heyday of, I was an illustrator for many years before then, but not always full-time, and many years after that, but not always full-time. That was back in the day when Larry King was a middle of the night radio jockey. Some of you don't even remember, you don't even know that Larry King Live used to be like, I forget, 2 to 4 a.m. or something like that. That's where he first cut his chops. That's where Larry King really got famous, I believe. And every once in a while on his program, he would do a "Why Are You Up?" program. And he would have people call in and just answer that one question. No chit chat, no discussion, just "Why are you up?" And it's not a scientific number, but it seems to me like somewhere between 60 and 80% of the respondents were, "I'm an artist, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a graphic designer, I'm an illustrator, I'm an artist." Isn't that funny? Seems funny to me anyway. All right, I like that little bit of white that just made those pillars pop forward like that, and I like what I did here too. So tomorrow I will have lots of fun coming out here. This really is fun. After those final glazes, doing just little bits of light here and there, not a lot, just little bits here and there, is really a lot of fun. It's a tiny bit of work, tiny bit of painting makes a huge difference, just like what I've done right here. I've got almost pure titanium on my brushes, and once again, though, what I'm doing is not opaque. It's actually translucent, quite translucent, but it still pops. Oh, I know, I thought about one thing over here. I thought maybe, let me experiment for a minute. I might do one car with headlights shining. That one right there. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'll leave it for now. That may end up staying that way, I'm not sure. All right, my dear wife is downstairs, actually not all the way down in the parking lot, downstairs in the parking lot waiting for me. So I dare not keep her too long. But as you can tell, I'm having a hard time quitting because this is really fun. All right, clean my last brushes. I'm going to leave most of my mess. I don't think they're not calling for any chance of rain. I didn't even take a sip of my wonderful tea that I made before I left the house. Man, well, I thought it might be colder than it is, and it's turned out I'm dressed formally enough. Getting down to 60. It might be 60 right now, but I'm warm enough. All right, hang on. Sorry, I'm trying to get one of my cases closed. All right, let's look at your comments and then I'll skedaddle. Looks pretty. Looks pretty in real life. Oh, there's my wife. Let me talk to her real quick.
The right number because it was in 2684 on the blue pad and it didn't work. Do I do it on, and then I back the car up. Do I do it on the red pad or the blue pad?
Oh, the one to the right. I never noticed any colors. I don't know what color.
Oh my gosh, there are two pads. There's one in blue underneath the microphone and there's one in red.
To the right. The one to the right.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, you guys still there? So there she was. It's a gated community and she had to get the... Are we still there? I think we are. All right, fun. All right, going back to the comments that I hadn't gotten. You have fun. I see lots of fun stuff. Street pole did look better when I moved over. Glad to hear that. Marlene, so happy to follow you along with another still from your 80-year-old former oil painter realist. Marlene, that is so precious. Really good to have you on board. Lori Johnson, keep going, Dan. We know there's some more layers to come. Marlene, oops, I'm 85. Way to go. Marlene pronounced over me that I'm going to keep on getting better till I'm at least 85. Thank you, Marlene. I appreciate it. I received that from your woman. And Lori Johnson said, love those background trees. Uncle Vince, is the airspace behind the canvas and the wall? Yes, there is. Uncle 57, do you approve of that? It's about a 3-inch gap. I designed an aluminum frame. I had a professional, metal company construct it for me, but I designed the frame. And yeah, so it's about a 3-foot gap. Now, if a tornado hits this house, of course, as somebody said, if a tornado hits, they're not going to be worried about my painting. But I'm sure it won't stand up to a tornado. But it should stand up to normal stuff. Good question. David says, in the smaller painting you did, that small glowing sign, I know it. Let me show you what David's talking about. I know it. And David, I'm finding it. Zoom in for a minute. I am finding it for some reason. I'm sure it's just my inadequacy. But here's what he's talking about. I don't know if you can see it, but this glow here. That's a good word. I might try to do that. I'm not as comfortable doing that. It's harder or something. It's different in acrylics than it is in oil. Do you hear me whining? That's me whining. But good observation, and you encouraged me to maybe. I did a little bit just this morning, but I agree with you completely. I think it would be better if there was more glow coming off this big sign. I'll see that tomorrow morning. Thank you for that point, because I think you're right. Susan, drink more wine. And your lack of voice won't bother you so much. Isn't he due to come out with a class? Yes, he probably is. No, I told him I brought my own tea. So no, I think you should see some letters in Cotton on this design. Thank you, Susan. I will give that serious consideration. You might be right. Maybe I'm just being lazy. Yes, James. I wonder why there's too late at night. Susan, I think you've all heard this canvas board faces straight west. So about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun is just about straight overhead. As soon as the sun hits this, well, hits me, frankly, but hits the canvas, there is no painting. I mean, it's just retina burning bright. So I can't really start painting till 8 o'clock. My wife had a number, and I had a number of engagements tonight, so I didn't get here till 8:30. That was irritating. The front driver's side of the blue car. Okay, front driver's side of the blue car. Uncle 57. Are you talking about this one, or this? Which blue car? Or this one over here? Let me. Uncle 57, if you're still listening, let me know which one, because I do want to know. Front driver's side of the blue car. Bumper to tire relationship. I don't think it's that one. It might be this one. It's probably that one, isn't it? Thank you. I will look at that. Or is it this? Maybe this one. Okay, I'll have to look at both of them. If I don't hear from you, I'll look at both of them tomorrow. Thank you guys for your corrections. For your gentle corrections. And then, you avoid certain colors for your glazes. You mentioned something about that in your comment. Yes. Normal glazes, avoid red normally. You want to go with a magenta, cool red, permanent rose, quinacridone magenta, alizarin crimson, but definitely not alizarin crimson for outdoor painting because it's a fugitive color. But yes, you want a cool red, not a red like a naphthol or a cad. They do not go transparent. When they go transparent, they turn into sick bubblegum pink. They don't feel to your gut. You don't look at it and say, oh, it's red. You look at it and say, oh, it's pink. Very different feeling. Whereas most of the other colors actually can go transparent, and it's still like, this still looks like yellow, even though it's very, very, very transparent. These greens still look green, even though they're very transparent. Not so with red. When red goes transparent, it looks pink. So you have to use a cool red. Very good question. Canute is an old aftershave. Maybe we can find to Google it. And Uncle, too many backseat painters. I'll shut up now. No. You've been Nobody tonight. I promise. Nobody tonight is sweet. There have been times over the years where some people have gone over. Oh, anyway, and they're no longer with us, sadly. Susan again. Did you have to replace that board? Oh yeah, I completely replaced the board. Yes. This is Hardy Plank or Hardy Board. I forget what it's called, but it's a cementous product. It's a concrete product. No, Susan, it was not my paint that failed. It was the substrate that failed. The substrate failed. My paint was fine, but the substrate failed. And that's what was wrong with the other stuff. Yeah, my wife. You heard my wife on speaker. Uh-oh. Are you not hearing me? Oh my goodness. I'm glad you guys told me that my mic went bad. Sorry about that. A little bit late. Sorry about that. And Uncle, thank you. 2 over from Yellow Foster's car. Okay, thank you. I will look at that. So you must have heard me. Looks like a bumper is on the floor, but maybe optical illusion to us. Oh, I see. In fact, it's partly this mark right there. Okay, that's a good little thing to fix tomorrow. All right, this has been so fun, y'all. I must have caught everybody at a good time of night. I enjoyed your company very, very, very much. If I missed anybody's chat, I will catch it later. Again, this has been great fun. And I do certainly hope to broadcast tomorrow morning when I come back. And I hope some of you can join me. Don't you guys have jobs? I'm kidding. I'm having fun. I appreciate your company very, very much. I do indeed. And my mic's over here now, so I should really be carrying this with me. Sorry. All right. I was just saying thank you very much. It's been great fun. And I hope to see some of you tomorrow. And then I said, wait a minute. Don't some of you guys have jobs? I'm beginning to wonder about you. All except Marlene. She's 85. You can do whatever you want. You don't even need a note from your mother. All right. It's been too fun. Thank you. Bye-bye.